Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract a legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. There we go. Make sure we get that in there so the lawyers are happy and the box can be ticked to say that we have done the double bicep flex. I did a lot of double bicep flexing on the weekend. We had the AWE Grand Prix event, which was absolutely stellar. And we're here to talk about the results. Some very insane, crazy, unpredictable results that happened. And I'll bring up the chat here so everyone can see that that is on. And if you write a comment, it will appear right there. I've got a couple of people in here already. If you are here, say hello, and I'll say hello back. We'll see who is online at this point in time. But yes, we had the AWE Grand Prix event, and what an event it was. It was an 8-man invitation-only heavyweight tournament, and it featured some of the best arm wrestlers in the Oceanic region. And we had 7 of the top guys in Australia competing, and we also had one from New Zealand. Of course, that's Matawaringi Heta Morris. And yeah, what a wonderful event. I'm hoping that everyone watched it. If you haven't seen it yet, you can see it on the AWE Underground YouTube channel. It has already been edited. It is already up there. We did do a live, which was just more of a behind the scenes kind of treat kind of live. So it was just running through the phone. And yes, but we filmed with 3 high quality cameras, and that's what we have edited into a good quality looking package. And you can see that on the AWE Underground channel at the moment. So I just want to wait a minute or two until a few people get in before we start chatting about the results. But we will say that it was in Brisbane, and thank you very much to Marcus Tirai for allowing us to use his place again for the tournament. It's where the Kingpins Arm Wrestling Club is based. And so we were very happy to be in there. If you've seen a lot of the other AWE Underground matches, you will recognize the background. And that is where we filmed again. A great location. And it was hot. It gets hot in that shed. But it's intimate. It has great lighting. And it looked awesome on camera when we did the underground matches. And so obviously it was a natural fit for us to put together for the Grand Prix event. So yeah, we were very happy to put that event together. We were looking at what was the next thing we wanted to do after the underground event. And we ran a couple of tournaments with the T-Series events. We had one here in Adelaide in November, and then we had one up in Brisbane. Well, it wasn't Brisbane. It was sort of halfway between Brisbane and the Gold Coast on Australia Day. And yeah, it was fantastic to be able to give prize money to all of the winners, and it was a significant prize money as well for an amateur tournament in Australia. And I remember specifically that SK from Brisbane or from Queensland, he walked away with like almost $800 for winning the under 70s left and right, and I think he got a place in the under 100s, like left or right or something like that. So he won quite a significant amount of money, which is fantastic to see that somebody can go to a tournament and actually walk away with almost $1,000. Yeah, so we ran that, and then we were thinking, what's the next thing that we wanted to do? And the idea of a tournament came up, but an invitation-only tournament. We're trying to get the best guys possible together to see who's going to come out victorious. And we listed, well, who do we think is the best guys that we could possibly get hold of in the country? And we reached out to everybody that we thought we would like to have. And the only ones that we weren't able to get were Mario Tambakis, because he was already booked for a match over in the US. And Lachlan Adair, obviously, because he has a restriction on his ability to compete in other organizations. But apart from that, we had the top guys in this country and in this part of the world that were competing in this tournament. And yeah, it was an absolute privilege to be part of it. So we'll get into the results here, and I'm going to bring up the bracket so everyone can see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So we had our first match. You can see up there, Matawaringi Heta Morris was faced off against Andy Boskovsky. And that was the number 1 seed versus the number 8 seed. So Andy Boskovsky the lightest guy in the field, I think just over 100 kilos, versus Mataringi had a Morris coming in at 165 kilos, which is, absolutely enormous. He is called the Beast for a reason. That man he's just big everywhere. And Andy was very much the underdog in that match. But if you've seen the event, you will see that it was no pushover. Andy was well within that match. He's a hook puller. He managed to get into a supination position, and he was driving sideways, but Header Morris was too strong, too heavy, managed to use back pressure and extend. Sit here so you can see what I'm doing. Extend Andy's arm. Andy using his bicep to hold, and he held for a really long time with 165 kilo man pulling against his arm. But eventually he did get pinned. But what a phenomenal effort, and very, very impressive. So that moved, as you can see on the screen here. So Mataringi Header Morris moves on into round 2, and Andy Boskovsky drops down into the B-side bracket. And the next matchup we had was Gunters Bykovs and Rickard Bornman. And I had actually picked Gunters in this matchup. I saw both guys as very similar stylistically. And I said to Gunters that it felt like Rickard is like the young version of you, which Gunters found very funny. But, very similar in their weight, very similar in their structure, both big, naturally big men. And I felt maybe that Rickard would be more powerful, be stronger. But I felt that Gunters had the experience, having competed for almost 30 years or something, and around the world, having been Australian champion, and his knowledge of setups and everything like that. I thought that would be the defining factor as to why he would walk away with the victory. But I was completely wrong. Rickard Bornman blew through Gunters Bykovs very easily in that first opening round, and he was able to get the pin pretty much straight off the go. It was just, he dominated the hand. It just drove straight to the pad. There was no real, it could have been anybody on the other side. It was a very impressive win for Rickard there. So obviously he moves on to round 2 to face Mataringi Header Morris, and then Gunters Bykovs drops down to face Andy Boskovsky in the B-side bracket. And we've got a nice comment has popped up here from Usa. I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I'm not sure. Rickard's strength is too much. Yes, he was incredible on Saturday. And just an absolute powerhouse. And we always knew he was strong. I mean, 120 kilos at 20 years old. This guy is big everywhere. Big legs, big arms, big torso. He is a powerful man, and you could see his wrists are like really thick. So it was just over the last year, he's been refining his technique to be able to apply that strength and that technique. So he's obviously been working very hard with the Kingpins Club on his ability to get his positioning, and you could see that took place on Saturday. He was able to roll through Gunters Bykovs in the opening round, which was a pick that I didn't expect that was going to happen. I got that completely wrong. And Kyle Howarth is one of the awesome arm wrestlers in Australia, from Western Australia, and he says, awesome event, makes it exciting to see some upsets. Absolutely, I completely agree. Kyle, your name came up a lot on the weekend. We were talking about who is in Perth and what we could do with people from Western Australia, and obviously Ryan Scott was there, so we were trying to find out who is active in Western Australia at this point in time, and everyone said Kyle Howarth is still there, still working hard. So yes, I'm glad that you enjoyed the event. And we had some massive upsets in that. I'm going to bring the bracket up again so we can continue talking about that. So the next match was Ryan Bowen and Brett Coots. Now, this is another one I got wrong. I think I got everything wrong on this whole thing. I don't think I got many right, to be honest. There were so many upsets. So Ryan coming in as the number 2 seed, Brett as the number 7 seed. And Brett being a very strong inside puller, and he needs to get to his spot to really dominate. And he was able to do that against Ryan. There was a couple of, when we've looked at the footage afterwards, Ryan thought there was a few moments there where he might have gotten a pin, which wasn't called. It was very close calls. It's one of those things where let me bring myself big here so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you've got the pin pad here, right, and then somebody goes, it's like, did that pin or not? It's like, did that did that in real time? It's very, very difficult. Unless you're right at the eye line and you're expecting to look out for it, it can be very difficult to tell whether somebody dipped just enough below, or if they didn't, it's like a fraction of a inch to be able to decide whether that was a pin or not. So yeah, a lot of close calls. Ryan felt there was a couple that he might have gotten a pin on, which didn't go his way. But yes, Brett did end up getting the win there and moved on, which was a surprise. But great for Brett because he looked in phenomenal form. Very, very muscular as always, but really focused. And so we'll bring up the bracket so I can see what happens here. So Ryan drops down to the B side bracket, and then Brett moves on there as well. And so the other opening match that we knew was going to take place was Lachlan Carpenter and Ryan Scott. So Lachlan had come into this with a lot of momentum. He had pinned Ryan Bowen twice at the AWE T-Series event on Australia Day here. Here it was in Queensland. And he pinned him twice. Fairly dominantly. I know Ryan hadn't really been training for that tournament, and there's some outside factors there, but the reality is that Lachlan definitely got those pins, and he'd been looking huge. He'd looked like 30% bigger than when we'd seen him last time. He looked very, very focused on winning this tournament, and his opening round was against one of the Australian legends in Ryan Scott, the Milkman, who has been around forever and knows arm wrestling in and out. And we haven't seen him for a couple of years. I think the last time we saw Ryan was either at the Over the Top tournament or he had a super match with Ryan Bowen. But both of those were a couple of years ago now. So, but he has the perfect style for a tournament. He is very much a flash pin, a victorious kind of puller. So if you could get a couple of flash pins in and you're running through the field and not exhausting yourself, that is perfect, because by the time you get towards the finals, towards the semifinals and the finals, you may be facing somebody who's been in a couple of wars and they're like a quarter strength of what they were previously, and you're still like, oh, I've still got everything here because I've exerted hardly any effort. So Ryan is that man. He has the ability to just roll through somebody, and that is exactly what happened in that match. He was able to get position on Lachlan, and it was a go, and then there was a little bit of a battle for about half a second before Ryan got the position he needed and just went straight sideways to the pad. So he moved on in the bracket. Lachlan drops down. So Lachlan Carpenter versus Ryan Scott. We had Ryan Scott winning there, moving on. And then we obviously see on the B side there that Ryan Bowen is the man that Lachlan Carpenter will be facing, which was good that it worked out that way because we got to see a rematch of these two guys in the tournament from February. So round two, moving on, Matawaringi Hannah Morris and Rikit Bornman. It's always fun to say Rikit's name. So this was a bit of a match we weren't sure how it was going to go. I've got a question here from Murgok. We'll just answer that first. Bournemouth going to East versus West qualifiers along with Bowen. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Ryan's going to it either. I think there's some questions because it's about 2 weeks from now. So yeah, I don't know if they would be peaked for it. It was still sore. Yeah, I can't remember whether they said they were going or not. And I think it's trending towards not going. But don't quote me on that because there was a lot of things said over the weekend. I can't remember everything that was said specifically about that. From what I don't think they are going, but I could be wrong. Is that a very confusing way to answer your question, Murgo? Basically, I don't know. School Lady Boy, I love the name, very clever. Says, yo, and hello to you too, sir. Very, very ingenious play on words there. Schoolboy obviously being one of the top arm wrestlers in the world, and yeah, looking bigger every time I see Schoolboy. He looks like he's grown another inch and put on another 10 kilos. So he's far from a schoolboy these days. Yeah, so we were talking about Matawaringi and Rickard Bornman. So that was a match which, again, I would have favored Matawaringi in that, having experience competing around the world, being powerful, a powerful man at 165 kilos. And Rickard, he's very strong. He's a big guy. He's 120 kilos. He's only 20 years old, and he's only really been in the sport for just over a year. And my initial feeling was that the same as with his match with Gunters, that Matawaringi would be more technically superior to Rickard, and he'd be able to stop Rickard from being able to get into his powerful position. But again, I got proven wrong, and Rickard was victorious very convincingly. Rickard is blowing through the field at this point in time, and he has just taken down Gunters Bykovs, who is an Australian legend, and he's just also taken down Matawaringi Hannah Morris, who is, he's called the Beast for a reason. That man is a giant, powerful man, 165 kilos. And to see Rickard get the win there, it was like, oh, maybe we were wrong about where we should have ranked Rickard. He was ranked 5th, but he has now moved on into the semi-finals. And we had the second match in the A side of round 2 with Brett Coots and Ryan Scott. And again, it was both these guys have been around Australian arm wrestling for a very long time. They would have matched against each other lots of times, and they've almost got a perfect contrast of styles, where Ryan Scott wanting to be up very high with his hand and coming over the tops with side pressure, and Brett wanting to supinate in and make the match as horizontal as possible to use his powerful arm. And it was an interesting match. We did get to see that Brett managed to get the win, and he was very happy with that. And he moved on in the bracket, and we'll bring that up again here. So Brett moves on into the semi-finals to face Rickard. Ryan Scott drops down into the B side, and he was lined up against. Have I spoken about the B side yet? No, I haven't yet. Okay, I'll get to that after. I'll finish going through the A side, and then I'll start looking at the B side. But yeah, so in the semi-finals, Rickard Bornman and Brett Coots. Again, Rickard just too strong. There was just not really much anybody could do against him on Saturday. He was just, as soon as it was a go, it was straight to the pad. And there was never any point throughout the whole day where he got pushed back, where he was in, a position where he had to adjust and then go for the pin. He was just driving to the pad every single round, and it was, blowing everyone's mind. It's like, this guy's taken out some of the best guys in the country, 3-0 without exuding much effort so far. And so he won against Brett. He moves into the finals, and we can see that Brett Coots, he managed to work his way through the B side to face Rickard again in the finals. But yeah, in the B side bracket, obviously Andy Boskovsky was able to beat Gunters, and now that for Andy was a huge win. He was very, very pumped up about that, and for good reason, because I think when Andy would have started arm wrestling, Gunters would have been the guy to beat. He was just the unstoppable Mount Everest arm wrestler that was untouchable. And to see that he's able to rise to that level and then to be able to beat Gunters, it is an absolute massive achievement. So well done to Andy. He was pumped. He was cheering. If you watch the footage there, you can see it on AWE Underground channel. He was very, very excited. And then I think as they were undoing the strap, he's like, "This is Gunters, everybody. Just so you know, I did win against Gunters Bykovs." So well done to Andy there. Fantastic effort. Ryan Bowen and Lachlan Carpenter. Now that was another exciting match that we really wanted to see, because it was a rematch of the T-Series tournament on Australia Day. So Lachlan Carpenter getting 2 pins on Ryan at the T-Series tournament. And Ryan had said throughout the build-up for this event, I hope that we do get to meet in the tournament, because I can show you what I'm really like when I'm properly prepared. and I'm at full strength. And that's pretty much what we saw in that matchup. Ryan too strong for Lachlan there. He was able to get the win, and Lachlan at that point ended up being eliminated. And yeah, there's always going to be an 0-2 in each tournament. Somebody's going to go 0 wins and 2 losses, and it's unavoidable. You don't want to see it happen, but unfortunately, Lachlan Carpenter seeded third. He did get some. Well, there was no easy matchups in this entire division, but yeah, unfortunately, losing to Ryan Scott, and then he had Ryan Bowen straight after. So yes, he did get eliminated at that point. But and Gunter's Bykovs as well, also going 0-2. He was one of the favorites leading into this, as seeded fourth. Yeah, so both those guys have been eliminated with 0 wins, 2 losses. Moving on, we had Ryan Scott and Andy Boskovsky, and again, Andy rising to the challenge and being able to beat one of the legends of Australian arm wrestling in Ryan Scott. That was another big win. It was a huge day for Andy Boskovsky, and I was so happy to see it for him, because you could tell that this guy has put in the work, and he's really started moving towards that progression in his arm wrestling career. He was very busy with his studies. He's studying medicine, which is now finished, so he's working as a doctor now. But that side of it is he can now commit fully to arm wrestling, and you're seeing the results of that. He's able to come up to this tournament with 7 other of the best guys in this region, and he beat Gunter's Bykovs. He's beaten Ryan Scott. He's made Matawaringi work extremely hard, and so obviously he's moved on, and you can see there he gets Matawaringi again in the next matchup, because Matawaringi ended up facing against Ryan Bowen. There was a little bit it was a difficult match. There was there was a moment, actually, I want to talk about this, because this was probably the most impressive moment of the day for me. Was this match with Matawaringi, Hedda Morris, and Ryan Bowen. So we know that Matawaringi is 165 kilos. He's an absolute powerhouse, and he was able to get a position on Ryan and roll back with back pressure. And Ryan was not completely flopped with his wrist, but it was sort of like about there. And he was holding and holding and holding, and Matawaringi was putting more and more pressure, down into Ryan's fingers, and Ryan was holding with everything he had, and it was getting worse and worse for him. His arms getting extended, and he was just trying to hold on as much as he could. And in the end, Matawaringi actually fell over backwards. He fell over backwards as his elbow. It was a pin and an elbow foul at the exact same time. So thankfully, we got a restart, because that was a phenomenal match. And yeah, but well done to Ryan for holding on in that position. I mean, he was in. There is no way he was going to be able to come back from there. In my opinion, I think he was so extended, he couldn't get a cup in his wrist. Like, he couldn't go sideways. He wasn't able to pronate. He just could hold on, and holding on, working in a tournament especially, is extremely difficult when you got 165 kilo, the beast hanging off your arm at the other end. But he held on, he got the foul, and got the restart. But unfortunately, he was not able to get the win. There was a foul out. I think, no, it wasn't a foul. It was called a pin. That's right. There was called a pin, which Ryan wasn't completely happy with. He believes that when his arm hit the pad, it was this part of his wrist and not above. It needs to be wrist and above that goes beneath the line or touches the pad. And it was sort of around here. But again, it's one of those things when you're refereeing and things are happening in real time. It's very hard. I mean, if somebody's like, say that's the pin pad, and it's like that. It's like, which part of my hand hit? You're not expecting it to go that, like, yeah, it's incredibly difficult to make those decisions. One of the outcomes of that is that we'll be putting in place a video replay. We did have video replay at AWE 2 and number 1, actually. But yeah, it's just a little bit more difficult to set up when you're doing it in a different location. But that is something we'll definitely have on board, so people can say, well, I don't believe that call was correct. I'd like to challenge it, and we can review it and find out whether or not it was correct. But unfortunately, Ryan getting the call going against him there. So Matawaringi Hedda Morris moved on against Andy Boskovsky, And yeah, it was a rematch of the opening round. And again, Andy making Matawarengi work incredibly hard. What a hard fought victory for Matawarengi there. He did end up getting the win over Andy, but man, Andy Buskowski, he was the standout performance of the day. Apart from Rickard Borman, I think Andy did a tremendous job, especially coming in at the 8th seed and coming in as the lightest guy in the field. He did a tremendous job, and he got to the B-side semi-finals. And in this tournament, that is an absolute major achievement. And as we had said leading up to this event, whoever wins this belt is a legitimately difficult tournament, and it really means something. If you win this belt, it really meant that you went against some of the best guys that were in this whole region of the world, and you managed to get through and become victorious. So we saw Brett go against Matawarengi Hedda Morris in the B-side final, and unfortunately for Hedda Morris, he was kind of exhausted at that point. It was hot in that shed, and the way that these brackets go through, Rickard was already in the final. He was waiting to see who would be facing off against him. We did the B-side final with Matawarengi versus Andy Boskovsky, and the only match that could happen next is Matawarengi and Brett Coots. So we did give Matawarengi some time to recover between rounds, but obviously there's a limit to how long you can give somebody, especially in a tournament format. So he had, I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes of recovery, but really, I mean, it wasn't enough. He was exhausted. How that match would have gone if Matawarengi was fresh, I don't know, but he started the round, and Brett, I mean, incredibly strong. And we already know that Brett is just so powerful with his arm, and he was able to catch Matawarengi trying to use his side pressure sort of roll, and he just gassed out. I mean, you could see, because I think we had the lapel mics, and you could hear Matawarengi's breath. We muted it on the edit, but you could hear how hard he was breathing, and he was just at one point, I think he's just gone like, that's it, I've got nothing left. And Brett got the pin. But that is a tournament. I mean, that's exactly what can happen. And that's why it's so exciting, because you never know what will happen. People can get into wars. People have to go from one match to the next with very minimal break. It's all those drama things that really get to play out. And we saw it take place. And it was only 1 hour, actually, that this whole tournament went through. So we really enjoyed that format, and we moved on to the final, the grand final, with Rickard Bornman and Brett Coots. And yes, Rickard just too strong, too powerful. Brett couldn't, well, I don't think that he had the option to really do anything. Rickard just, again, powering through straight to the pad. It was an incredibly impressive performance from Rickard Bornman. The entire tournament, he never looked like he was in danger. He never looked like anybody could stop him. Yeah, he was just an absolute powerhouse throughout that event. I think it wouldn't matter what order you put him in. He could have been in against any of the guys in the field. I think he wouldn't have had any dramas on that day. Just incredibly strong, unbelievable, and well done to Rickard. He did an amazing post-event speech where he thanked his dad and said that he really missed his family, and he was very proud to be part of the AWE, which was amazing for us. We were so proud to see him compete and have all the guys up in Brisbane competing in this event. But yeah, what a win to Rickard Borman, a lovely guy, so humble and nice and friendly, and yeah, he can be a superstar in this sport, absolutely. After the event, we did the after pool, which is always the best part, where you've got some of the best guys in the country, and you get to jump on the table with them and have some back and forth. But Rickard, I think he after pulled a couple of guys, and then Lachlan Adair arrived, and so they jumped on the table together, and Rickard was getting pins on Lachlan Adair, which I think surprised a lot of people. Lachlan obviously being an absolute powerhouse and recognized as the number one in the country in Australia. But yeah, Rickard able to get pins on him, which is, just absolutely incredible. Lachlan, I know how strong Lachlan is, and to be able to get pins on him, whether it's practice or not, it's it's no small task. And yeah, so that got a lot of attention for Richard Borman, able to get a few practice pins on Lachlan. And then, it's obviously that discussion of this guy, like, is he like the top guy now? Like, is this the future of this realm of Oceania? Maybe we're looking at a super heavyweight champion, and yeah, we've got lots of discussions happening as to where this sort of could go from here. But what a fantastic victory for Richard Borman. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We enjoyed the fact that it was spread out over just 1 hour, and it was match after match after match. There was no delays. There was no come back in 2 hours for the grand final or anything like that. It was non-stop. I think total was 15 matches. Let me bring that up so I can see. What have we got? It's about, I think it was 15 matches. It's either 14 or 15. It would have been an extra one had Brett won in the final, because he would have brought Whittaker down to the B side, and then you would have had, whatever. That didn't happen. But yeah, throughout the hour, and we saw on the live stream that the views just kept increasing throughout the event, and people were watching and continued to watch and retained the audience, which is great for us. We were very happy to put on a high quality event. Yeah, it was a privilege to do that with these guys, especially some of the best guys that we could match up together. And I think if you ran that tournament 10 times, I think Rickard would win it all 10, but the other matchups would be completely different. As to who would make it to the grand final against Rickard. It was just an absolute stellar field, and yeah, a wonderful event, and so good to be able to meet all these guys. We did an after pool session at Marcus's house, and then we went out and had food and everything together. Lots of laughs, lots of photos, and all the rest. And we ended up at Lachlan Adair's house, and somehow or another, I don't know how this started. We were doing who could lift the most of all these crazy lifts. Like you see Ryan Bowen doing that lift thing every day, and so everyone was having a go at that. And then there was a real back and forth war between Lachlan Adair and Ryan Scott with, I don't know what the lift is called, but it was a very thick pipe and then plates of weight underneath that, and they started at 100 kilos, and with one hand you grab hold of the pipe like that or that, and you just had to lift it off the ground. And at 100 kilos, that wiped out nearly everybody else that was giving it a go. And then Lachlan and Ryan kept increasing the weight, and they just kept getting stronger and stronger. The funny thing was that Lachlan struggled at 105 kilos, but then he got 110 easily, then he got 120 easily, and then 130 easily. It's like, you're not supposed to be able to do this. It's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to be getting weaker as you go, not stronger. And he ended up at 151.5 kilos on that lift, which was absolutely insane. I've got a video of that. I'm sure I'll be cutting together and uploading. I'll probably do that today. But yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Ryan ended up messaging one of his powerlifting friends and said, is this like a record? What, in terms of this lift, what would be 151.5 kilos in terms of competitive level? And the guy wrote back, I'm not sure who it is, Ryan be able to tell you, and said, don't know if it's a record, but that amount of weight is world elite level. So he may have set a world record in his shed with everyone there, which I've got on footage, which hopefully will validate and see where he stands in that. But wow, what an amazing moment. Yeah, so we've got a few people in here. If anyone's in and wants to ask a question or say what they thought on the event, I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, overall, what a crazy event. We'll look at the bracket again. So yeah, the highlight matches for me, we had Ryan Bowen and Lachlan Carpenter, which was absolute a rematch. And we've got a question here from Kyle, which I'll bring up. He says, what's next for AWE? Well, yeah, we've got a few options here, and we based on the results from the weekend, our options have expanded, and we're sort of looking at what's the best thing that we want to do. We really enjoyed the tournament format and thought that that ran fantastically. We loved the fact that it was 1 hour and it was entertaining and dramatic throughout the hour. So we'll definitely be doing those sorts of events again, as well as super matches. But as to exactly what we'll be doing and where, we are working on it at the moment. We've got some meetings scheduled this afternoon to run through possible ideas. But we were very focused just on Saturday as to making sure that everything ran smoothly and that the event was a success, which it was. And it was one of those things when I don't know how many of you in the chat have organized events before, but it's hard to sort of look at the next one when you're trying to get this one all pieced together. And there was a lot of, moving parts that needed to be organized, even just flights and how we're going to get to the Airbnb with all the guys and hiring cars and food and all of those little things that you don't really consider until it's like, oh yeah, we've got to get food, right? Okay, everyone in the car, we'll go into Coles. Yeah, so but it was great. We had 2 Airbnbs, so there was 4 of us in one and 3 in the other. And obviously the guys in Brisbane had their own place, which they didn't need to stay with us. But it was kind of funny that this actually, I forgot to tell anyone about this, but I thought this was a funny moment. On the day of the tournament, which was Saturday, the tournament scheduled to start about 12 o'clock. I got up about 7:30, 8 o'clock or something like that. Gunter's is up. The other guys in the house were up, Matt Waringi and Ryan Scott. And Gunter's is making bacon and eggs for everybody. And it was just so surreal a moment that he's plating up this food for his opponents in like 2 hours' time. It's like, what other sport would you ever see where you're staying in the house with your opponents, and not only are you staying with them, you're making food for them. It just made me laugh. I thought it was fantastic. But that's this arm wrestling community. I mean, everybody is so supportive, and it's almost like you don't want to see people lose. You want to see everybody win. And yeah, that's why the after pool is so fun, because you can get on with everybody, and there's no pressure as to getting a pin, and you can have lots of fun and laugh and be silly. And even the guys who beat each other in a tournament, they're on the table together discussing positioning and how I beat you and what you need to do to stop me from doing that. And then we're all in the car going back to the Airbnb together after the event and hanging out for the rest of the night. And it's like, these are the guys you were facing off against. It's kind of surreal. Like, if you think any other sport, I can't think of anything where you would go with your opponents, stay in the house with them, make them breakfast, and then go and compete with them, and then go and hang out with them for the next 2 days afterwards. It's just, I don't know, I love it. I think it's fantastic. It just shows what community this arm wrestling sport has, and that everyone is so supportive. And we're watching the matches back on the Sunday morning, and Lachlan Carpenter's there like this because he didn't want to see himself get beaten. And I don't know, it was great. It was great fun. We had a good time. And so AWE is doing good things for arm wrestling in this region of the world, and we are so glad that people are tuning in and enjoying what we're doing. And we want to give opportunities for everybody to become professional arm wrestlers, and maybe we'll see what happens with Rickard after this event. There's a lot of interest. He's already had some people reaching out and seeing who's this Rickard guy, so that has been positive. It just shows us that people around the world are actually watching what we're doing. And it's fantastic to see everybody in here. Is there any other questions that people have about the event or AWE or any of the matches? Love to hear from you guys. It's there's a whole bunch of people in here, but you're being very quiet. Yes, give me a question, please, and I'll answer you. But otherwise, you're just going to hear me continue to talk about the tournament, which I could do that. I'm quite happy to. It was a great tournament. Dave Stockbridge actually did a fantastic job of presenting the grand final, and we didn't actually give him a mic, but he luckily is loud enough and clear enough that you can hear him presenting the two guys in the grand final. And obviously he was able to do the post-match interview with Rickard, a very emotional moment with Rickard Bornman. And yeah, fantastic event overall. So yeah, we've done, I think this is our fifth event that we have run. We've done AWE 1, which was here in Adelaide. And then we had AWE 2 again here in Adelaide, which was a really big event. Actually, that was one of our proudest moments, was to be at the Adelaide Oval in the Octagon, which thank you to Diamondback Fighting Championships and Craig Ike and Greg Hearn, who own that organization. And we were able to get in there and run our event in the Octagon. We had Todd Hutchings came over, and he was the main event against Mataringi Hedda Morris. And what an absolute war that was. If you haven't seen that event, you can see it. It's on the AWE YouTube channel. And Todd Hutchings was working so hard in that match. I said this on the commentary throughout the event, but I think after the third round, Todd was standing in the corner and he was sweating more than I've ever seen a human being sweat. It was, and I said, this is what I said on the commentary. It looks like he's standing in a shower. And I hold to that because it was pouring off of him. It was like someone had a bottle of water and was just that's how much he was working in that match. Even though he managed to get a 4-0 victory, he worked his guts out for it. And great guy, awesome to have him here. We've got a comment here from Desmond Green Andrew. Is another AWE T series going to happen soon? Yeah, so that's what we'll be discussing this afternoon as to what the next thing we want to be moving towards, and whether or not it's a big super match event or another T series event. Yeah, but we really enjoyed doing the T series side of things for, I guess you'd say, the amateur side. The guys who are looking to establish themselves and make a big name for themselves. And we did one here in Adelaide, and we've done one in Queensland. But yeah, it just comes down to what our priorities will be. We will definitely run more T Series tournaments, but as to when and where, that hasn't been decided at this point in time. And is your Andrew spelling, or am I saying that wrong? Andrew, Desmond Green, Andrew W. Is it supposed to be Andrew, and you've spelled it wrong on your username, and now you're stuck with it forever? Or am I just saying it wrong? But yeah, that's where we'll be heading. This afternoon, we've got a meeting scheduled with Ryan Bowen and Dave Stockbridge, and we're going to discuss our next steps. But yeah, we were very happy with how the event ran on the weekend. So I'll probably go for another couple of minutes here. If you've got a question, pop it in. Otherwise, I will start wrapping things up. But yeah, overall, we were very pleased. It was a 1 hour sort of total time that this 8-man double elimination tournament took to run. And thankfully, Ryan stayed up all night, actually, and edited all of the high quality, high definition footage together so that we could release it as soon as possible. Because that's one of those things that we really wanted to focus on. Is we've run an event, we want to get the footage out ASAP, because the last thing you want is an event happens and then 6 months later the footage comes out and no one cares anymore. There's a very short window of time where people care about that event, and the next event comes around. If you haven't put your footage out, they've forgotten about it. They don't care anymore. They'll probably have found the results out, and maybe the worst thing is like that somebody would find out the result just from like reading a Reddit forum or, on just the text, rather than having the opportunity to actually watch it. So it was great of Ryan to jump straight into the editing when he got home, and he pushed. I think he finished it at 6 a.m. or something, um, which is absolutely insane that he stayed up all night doing it. But kudos to him for that. We were able to get that footage out ASAP. Obviously, the footage that was streaming the tournament was just from his phone. It was more of a value add. We were like, oh, we'll put this up so that people that are interested in the tournament, they can see what's happening. They know the results. But the next day is when we're going to put up the high definition proper event results, and that's what we did. So that is available for free, and it is on AWE Underground on YouTube. And Desmond says there was a same name on YouTube, so I switched letters. Wow, someone has the exact same name. That's very interesting. Desmond Green Andrew. Yeah, I mean, you would think that would be rare enough that you wouldn't have to goof around with it, but yeah, at least I wasn't saying it incorrectly. Grant Law, one of the SA Titans and a fantastic man, he says an excellent event that takes arm wrestling another big step forward in Australia. Yes, and I know that, Grant, you would be excited that Rickard was the victor in that. Obviously, being a South African, and Grant coming from South Africa as well. You know, I always see your comments on his stuff, and it's written in Afrikaans, and then I've got to press translate to see what you've actually said. But yes, well done to you on your birthday the other day, and I'm sure that I will see you on Sunday at training. And yeah, 8 billion people, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it would be rare enough, but yeah, I guess if you got to change it, you got to change it. But it's close enough that I would have probably read it as Andrew without having to mix it up there. But yes, so probably another minute here, guys. If you got any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll finish up. But we were very happy with how the event ran. There was some feedback about refereeing. One of the things that's always amusing to me is on our videos. There's always people that complain about the refereeing. But they don't actually know what the rules are for AWE. They haven't. The comment will say something. Oh, they're starting in a hook, or they started supinated, or they started in this position. It's like in AWE, if both guys agree to start, no matter what position they're in, if they are both happy to start in that position, we'll just say go. And that's part of the AWE rule set. But I think the people who are commentating think that every single event around the world runs under the WAF rules, which is not correct. It's not accurate. We also don't count like small little elbow bobbles. We won't give a foul for that. If you just popped up like a tiny bit and straight back down, I'm not going to call that. Nothing changed in that match from that. You can even pop off the side and come straight back on. That's fine. Keep going. But yeah, and that's written into the rule set, which is available for anyone to read. It's on the AWE website, awearmwrestling.com. But it just makes me laugh because I see these comments and it's like, you obviously haven't read the rules for AWE because you're thinking it's WAF. And yeah, sure, if it was WAF, that would be wrong. But it's not WAF, it's AWE. But there we go. Luca says that what American do you think would be a good match versus Rickard? Well, this is one of the things we were going to discuss this afternoon. So we've got a meeting scheduled with Dave Stockbridge and Ryan Bowen as to how we're going to move forwards with AWE, our next event. What we could do in terms of our opportunities with Rickard, good matches that might take place for him. Him, and he's 120 kilos. He's 20 years old. He's a powerhouse in this sport. We've got some names that we've come up with, which I don't want to share just yet because I don't want to say anything about potential things that haven't happened as of this point. They're just ideas and we haven't reached out to anybody. We're just throwing ideas at each other, and that will continue this afternoon. But there are a lot of good pullers that Rickard could face off against, especially in America and especially in Europe. He thought Amish ref did okay. It does look like an Amish beard on Ethan. Yeah, I know it's funny. He's a lovely guy, Ethan. I thought he did a really good job. To be honest, I thought he did tremendous in terms of the AWE style of refereeing. He was clear with his instructions. He was able to communicate with the competitors. He didn't get intimidated by them. He was able to clearly foul people when they weren't listening to him. There were moments where the like pins, which was that a pin, wasn't it? You know, it's sometimes you're going to get it right, sometimes you're going to get it wrong, but it's almost impossible to get it right every single time when people are hitting that fast, and they if they're just breaking through the pin line, or if they're not, it's bloody hard to get that call right. It's easier if you say just bury that person's hand in the pin pad so there's no question about it. And Levan Sagashvili from the future. Oh, he's got a lovely little AI version of, I think it's Levan. Says, "What's up? Hello to you, sir. You're coming in right at the end here, Levan." Although there is that big match coming up with Levan and Devon, I think Levan will be way too strong for Devon. I know that Devon has increased his strength and he's looking monstrous, and he's doing a lot of trash talk and all the rest of it and selling the match, which is fantastic. That's what it needs to get as much attention as possible. What's it, first to four? I think it's first to four. I think Levan's going to be too strong, and I think he's just going to roll 4-0 over Devon again. One of the questions that we had about that is that a good thing for the sport if Levan is just so dominant? Where do you go from there? If you have crushed the number 2 guy twice, 6-0, 4-0, it's like, that's number 2. Why would you face number 3 or 4 or 5? You just destroyed number 2. But the best result that could happen from a commercial point of view and from an arm wrestling audience point of view would be if, let's say it's a 3-all war back and forth, and then Devon wins the silver bullet match and trash talks his way through the match or something and gets the pin, and it sets up a third match, a rubber match, to decide the ultimate winner. But commercially, that would be what everybody from the promotion side would be hoping is going to happen. But as to realistically, I think that Levan is just a lot stronger than Devon in terms of the areas that he needs to be. So, well, he might prove me wrong. We'll see what happens. Hayden is in the chat. He says, "What do you think the next AEW event will be looking like?" Well, I'm glad that people are asking this question a lot. And the only reason I've sort of giggling there, Hayden, is I think I've answered that question 4 times so far, but I'm glad and happy to answer it because it shows that people want to see more of AWE, and that is a highlight for me. It's very nice that people are looking forward to the next event. I've got a meeting scheduled with Dave Stockbridge and Ryan Bowen this afternoon. We're going to discuss exactly that. What is the next thing that we want to do? Do we want to do another big super match card, or do we want to do a T-Series event, or do we want to do another 8-man tournament? So there's a lot of exciting things. We're not tied into anything, which is it's great to have that freedom and the ability to change and do different things. We're not sort of tied into only super matches or only tournaments. We can do anything and everything. I mean, one of the events that we've run, which was under the SA Titans banner, but it was one of my favorite things, and it was called Last Man Standing, and it was a 1 hour king of the table kind of thing. And if you won, then you stayed on. If you lost, then you go to the back of the line. So the person who was going to be in the king position right on the hour, when it ticks over to the hour, they won $1,000. And the person who held on to the king position the longest throughout that hour also won $1,000. That was one of the most fun events that I've ever seen take place. I think it's on my YouTube channel, HollywoodMattConnolly.com. Just have a look for Last Man Standing. In 60 minutes, I think we had 180 matches or something. Absolutely fantastic event. But again, that is a possibility. We're not restricted to only doing super matches, only doing 8-man tournaments, only doing T-Series. We can do whatever we would like to do, and that's what we're discussing this afternoon. What is the next thing that we would like to do with AWE? And Lucas says he likes the 8-man. Do lightweights next. Well, we'll see what happens. That might be on the discussion point. One of the things that's kind of difficult here in Australia is we don't have as many people competing in arm wrestling. So if you targeted a certain weight class, my first question is there enough competitors to even put that together? Let's say it's under 70. I don't know if we'd have enough people, especially elite people, especially people that it would be a really tight competition that you can have some absolute wars and really build some drama. Obviously, in the heavyweight division, we were able to get that happening, and that's what you saw on the weekend with the Grand Prix. But yeah, the lightweights, Josh Barker is just light years ahead of everybody in the under 70 kilo division. He would win any tournament that is held probably in this whole southern hemisphere. He is an absolute weapon with his press, and it's pretty hard to sort of put a tournament together when you've got an absolute killer like that in that division, and then to restrict him from not competing in it would almost be painful as well. But yeah, invite a few outsiders. Yeah, possibly. We could see what happens with that. Obviously, you've got to look at your expenses as to, who you're going to get over and how much is it going to cost and what is the benefit in terms of viewership and all the rest of it and marketing, because Australia, unfortunately, is completely on the other side of the world to nearly everything else. And, flying out to Australia from anywhere, you're looking at minimum $2,000 kind of thing, and multiple days of travel as well. So, if you've got a lightweight tournament, it's like, well, you'd have to be approaching your top guys to make it interesting. And it's like, do they have a big following? Are they entertaining? Are they commercially viable? Those elements really do count when you're looking at it from a promotion side of things. I always say this to any of the arm wrestlers that I'm talking to, that just got a message that if you can build a profile for yourself, make yourself known, you'll find that you'll get a lot more opportunities than if you're an elite arm wrestler that doesn't put themselves out there. So obviously, if you're winning absolutely everything, you're going to get opportunities. But if you're sort of sitting in that third and fourth position, and you're not making a name for yourself in any which way, it's got to be pretty hard to find those opportunities, the same opportunities that others may get that are nowhere near as good as you. Josh is a killer. He absolutely is. He's under 70. It's like Josh, and then the next guy is way down there. Josh beats heavyweights. That's how bloody good he is. He actually at the AWE Underground event, you can see Josh Barker, who's 70 kilos, facing off against a Tyron, who was 155 kilos, and Josh comfortably won that match. That's how bloody strong he is. And the Drew thought about moving Australia closer to us. Yes, well, I've seen conspiracy theories out there that say that Australia doesn't exist, which I thought was quite funny, literally living in the country at the time. There's always crazy people out there. And Spermies is here. He says, Hollywood, hello to you, Spermies. Lovely to meet you in person. And I'm glad that you were able to have a good laugh at Dave and I's jokes on the podcast, the AWE podcast that we were doing there, with the Stephen Hawking joke that I'm referring to there. The Drew getting enough to pull can be tough for sure. Wow. You couldn't have made that sentence more difficult for me to read there, Drew. All right. Yes, it is difficult. If you're looking at any weight division, it's like, is there enough competitive guys? Because you might get enough people, but it's like your number 1 and 2 might be way above everyone else, and there's just no point putting a tournament together because it's just going to be these guys that win, and yeah, it can be frustrating in that aspect, but the sport is growing here in Australia. And I think one of the reasons for that is, luckily, we've got AWE pushing things. We've got the AAF that is putting events on as well. We're putting out content constantly to try to get people interested. And I think even at our local club, in the SA Titans Club, we've gone from, when I started, there was 3 people, and now we're regularly getting about 40 people coming along to our training sessions, and new people coming through every single week. And they say, we've seen the videos, or we've seen you on YouTube, or we've watched your matches. And they will walk in. The craziest thing is they'll walk in and they'll know everyone's nickname, which is just like, really surreal. But it shows that they are watching, and then they feel like, oh, I'd like to actually give it a go. So we're getting people like that every week at arm wrestling. And it's actually strange for me to go through a whole training session and not arm wrestle every single person there, because that's how it used to be. It used to be that there was, maybe 8 to 10 people, and you'd get on with everybody. And I thought this the other day when we had a training session, there was probably 40 people there, and I missed out on maybe 10 people. And I was like, man, this is weird. Like, I'm so used to training with absolutely everybody. But yeah, it's good. It's a good thing that, you're running out of time, and we're there for 3 hours and still couldn't get on with everybody. So yeah, it shows to me how much the sport is growing in this area. And then we're seeing clubs getting sort of coming out and popping up all over the country as well. And New Zealand as well is starting to really push up. And so we can have some great matches with the guys over there. And really, Singapore has its own events going as well with Greg Yeo. He is putting things together. So yeah, it's absolutely tremendous to have this growth in the sport. Here, I'll put the chat up here so you guys can see what pops up. There we go. And I'll scroll down there. Spermies is talking to Bike. Muscle Bike. Great to see Muscle Bike in here. Muscle Bike. I don't know. What is the reference there, Muscle Bike? Is it Muscle Dash Bike, or is it that you have a bike that's... Oh, I can see it there. It's a motorbike. Muscle car, muscle bike. I get it. Very nice. The Drew says, could Rickard come on the show? He's at work at the moment. That's one of those things that we are trying to do, is make it so that arm wrestlers can be professional arm wrestlers, and that is what they do as their employment, rather than having to work a job as well. But yeah, we'll be talking to him today later on, but it won't be through a podcast. It'll just be, obviously our own private discussion. But yeah, he is working at the moment. That's why he wouldn't be able to get on here. But yeah, he has a great interview with Ryan on Ryan's channel, which was prior to AWE 2 when he took on Mario Tembarkis. And you really get a good insight as to what makes him tick. And yeah, he is a good guy. The truth's got a motorbike emoji there. Muscle Bike, Matt, I am a motorbike. You met my owner, mate. Oh, there you go. Yes, that's it. It's always great to meet people in person. And, when somebody comes up and you can put a name and a face to the name of, it's like, hey, I'm Spermies, ours is creamy, or I'm Muscle Bike, or I'm, what was it? The Arm Historian. There were so many people that I got to meet in Ireland, and yes, fantastic. Go. Let's scroll that. If that chat does scroll automatically, doesn't seem to. I don't know. Maybe it is on your footage there, but yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we've got Desmond Green. Andrew, he says, I don't know if this would be possible, but a lot of the biggest sports in Australia, like rugby, get into the sport in schools. So I was thinking you could start like in school programs. Yeah, we've looked at that as well. I've actually done demonstrations in schools for kids. My concern is arm breaks, because you put an arm wrestling table in somewhere, but you don't provide the coaching, or if you did provide the coaching, it'd have to be for absolutely everybody that was going to get on that table. Yeah, you put an arm wrestling table in there, I think within that week, somebody's going to break their arm. And then that's bad publicity for the sport. It's just, yeah, there is that safety aspect of arm wrestling where you need to have somebody show you how to do it correctly before they get on and actually start going 100%. So, yeah, that was my concern with schools. I was glad to do the demonstrations in there, and it's always fun. I arm wrestle all the kids and let them all win, but I don't want them arm wrestling each other at all. because they don't know how to do it properly. And it's almost like putting a boxing ring in somewhere and then going, oh yeah, go in, have some fun. It's like people don't know how to box. They're just swinging punches at each other. Someone's going to get bloody hurt. So yeah, that is my concern. I really like the aspect of come to the club and we'll teach you how to do it properly. And once you have acquired enough foundational knowledge to keep yourself safe, then you can start going against other people that aren't just going to let you get position and you know, because all of our experienced guys in our club will all allow you to learn by, you know, getting position, and you win against everybody because we're allowing you to, but we're showing you how to get into certain spots. And as you progress, as you get better, we'll make it harder and more difficult. But the last thing I want is two guys that have turned up for the very first night and they got on a table together. No, that's not going to happen. You come with me, you go with him, and we'll show you what to do properly. And don't go in against each other until you know how to keep yourself safe. Yeah. No, we saw that one. I keep clicking on the wrong one. Spermies, there you go. It was great to meet you. It was great meeting you, absolutely. And I know that everybody had a fantastic time in Ireland for the Arm Gods event. And yeah, it's always great to put a face to the name. So great to meet you too. And Muscle Bike, we'll meet again. Hopefully we'll get to pool next time too. Absolutely. Yeah, I did manage to get on the table at Arm Gods right at the end of the night. After the thumbtack match, I had to go with Phil Woody and Mindargus Dorcas and a couple of the other guys there. But the pads had been taken away. So it was just a flat table. And there was bloody thumbtacks everywhere. When I got home from Ireland, I still had thumbtacks in my shoe. I was pulling out. So yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time. Test those loaded guns out, says the Drew. Yeah, that's it. We'll get you a nice little double bicep there. But that's a bike. Here we go. And Matt's very nice. Spermy says, I would have pulled Matt, but I didn't want to hurt him. You know, thank you, Spermies. That was very considerate of you. Yes, you were hurting everybody on that card. That's why they said don't go on against Spermies at all. He will crush you, he will destroy you, and you will never be the same afterwards. Getting some nice little emojis there as well. All right, no worries. So, any other questions, guys? I'll go for another minute here if there's any questions anyone has, if they want to write about the event or anything to do with AWE or anything to do with arm wrestling, or happy to answer. The Drew says, have you got a license for that weapon, Matt? Well, thank you, Drew. That's a nice compliment. Luckily, you don't need to have a license to have arms. Maybe one day you will, but no, it's not a requirement. For those, oh, you fixed your spelling mistake there. Oh, very nice. All right. No worries. Well, what I might do is I might wrap this up here. But thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you for watching. If you watched the AWE event on the weekend, the Grand Prix, you can see it. It is on the AWE Underground YouTube channel for free. It is right there right now. So lovely to see everybody in here. And Spermy says AWE was interesting. Some serious pulls here. It was a fantastic event. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. But I'll leave it there. So I'll give you one last double bicep just to finish things off. All right. And